Every story on this list actually happened. We're talking about people who showed up to a cruise ship, made it through security check-in, got on board, and then did something so unbelievably dumb that they ended up banned for life, arrested, sentenced to federal prison, or worse. Some of these are funny, some of them are not, but all of them will make you feel a lot better about your own decision-making. Let's get into it. Number 10. She paid $500 cash to a stranger and brought a purse full of fake cards. Ship security flags a woman for suspicious payment activity on board. Officers come to investigate. She's sitting there, and the first thing she tells them is that she got on the cruise by paying $500 cash to a woman she met through someone she knows. The cruise cost over $1,200. She doesn't know the woman's name. She paid cash. She has no paperwork. And when officers ask what she was supposed to do on the ship, her answer is this: nothing. Just come on board, do some drinking, and get off. The officers aren't buying it. One of them puts it to her directly. No one in their right mind is going to let you pay $500 for a $1,200 cruise and expect nothing in return, especially from someone you don't even know. She keeps saying the woman's name is Anne. Then she doesn't really know Anne. And then she met Anne through someone else. The story shifts every time they push on it. She admits at one point that she thought it was a scam, but she did it anyway. Then they open her purse. Multiple credit cards. Officers run through them one by one. Almost all of them are declined. The only card that works is her own. When they ask whose names are on the other cards, she can't explain it. When they find a fake ID in her wallet, she says she forgot it was in there. Oh, and she also had marijuana. It's not a great afternoon. Here's what was actually going on. The scheme works like this. Someone books the cruise and the onboard excursions using a stolen credit card. They recruit a person, usually with a cheap travel offer, and tell them to come on board, cancel the pre-booked excursions, and pocket or redirect the refund. While on the ship, the recruit is also supposed to make purchases using additional stolen cards, running more fraudulent transactions before the card gets flagged. The organizer stays clean. The recruit takes all the risk. And the recruit doesn't even fully understand what they've signed up for until officers are sitting across from them with the cards spread out on the table. She was charged with possession of fake identification and banned from cruising for life. The officer's summary of what she thought was going to happen stays with you. Come on board the ship, charge whatever you want, and you're not going to get caught. Well, she got caught. Number 9. They fished off the balcony and posted the evidence themselves. A group of passengers on a Carnival cruise set up fishing lines off their cabin balcony while the ship was docked in Nassau. Then they filmed themselves doing it. Then they posted the video on TikTok. Carnival banned them for life, and the investigation was probably the easiest one the company has ever had to conduct, because the passengers had already done it for them. Think about that for a second. They were caught by a crew member walking past. Nobody reported them. They put the video on one of the biggest platforms on the internet with the cruise line's name in the background, and then Carnival watched it like anyone else scrolling through their feed. The passengers handed over the footage, the identification, and a free distribution platform all in one post. Whatever case Carnival needed to make was already made before anyone at the company knew it existed. The fishing itself was also a problem. A cruise ship has other passengers on the decks below, and hooks and fishing line going over the side of something that size is not the same as casting off a dock somewhere quiet. But between fishing off the balcony and posting the video publicly, the video was the worst decision. Some people treat a cruise like a private holiday rental. This group treated it like a reality show they were producing themselves. Number 8. He jumped off the ship deck to get views. Nick Nadev was on Royal Caribbean's Symphony of the Seas when it was docked in Nassau, and he decided to go up to a high deck, jump off it into the water below, film the whole thing, and post it online. Royal Caribbean gave him a lifetime ban. When he spoke to interviewers afterward, He said he hadn't thought it through and hoped nobody would try to copy him. A bit of an understatement. Symphony of the Seas is one of the biggest cruise ships in the world, and jumping from a high deck into the water is not the same as jumping off a dock or even a cliff somewhere. The height changes what actually happens when you hit the surface. It's not just a bigger splash, and the currents around a hull that size are not something you can judge from where you're standing on the deck above. Now, he got lucky, and he said so afterward. Lucky and smart are not the same thing. And here's something a lot of people don't think about. When a passenger goes overboard on a cruise ship, the ship has no idea whether it was intentional or an accident. There's no way to know from the bridge whether someone jumped for a video or fell over in the dark. So the response is always the same. The ship goes into emergency mode. Everything else stops. Crew get pulled from every other job on board, and thousands of passengers on that sailing had their afternoon interrupted because one guy wanted views, didn't really think about it, and later admitted as much to anyone who'd listen. Number 7. She climbed outside her balcony railing for a photo. A woman on Royal Caribbean's Allure of the Seas climbed over her cabin balcony railing and stood on the outside of it to take a selfie. Not leaning over the rail, on the outside of it, hanging above the ocean with nothing underneath her. Someone got a photo of her doing it. Royal Caribbean identified her, had her removed from the ship dock in Jamaica, and banned her and her travel companion for life. The part that really gets me is that the photo would have looked exactly the same from inside the railing. The ocean is still there. The view doesn't change based on which side of the railing you're standing on. She put herself in genuine danger for a picture she could have taken 2 feet to her left without climbing over anything. And a cruise ship balcony is not the same as a hotel balcony. It's worth actually saying that out loud. A hotel is sitting on solid ground and not going anywhere. A cruise ship is constantly moving. The wind works differently at that height on a vessel that size, and the structure underneath your feet is not stable in the way that balancing on the outside edge of a railing needs to be. If you go over the side, there's nothing below you but a very long drop to the water. A lot of people online said Royal Caribbean overacted with the lifetime ban. They didn't. Standing on the outside of a moving ship's railing is not a gray area, and if something goes wrong at that point, it's not just one person's problem anymore. The whole ship goes into emergency mode. Crew get pulled away from everything else, and thousands of passengers who had nothing to do with any of it get caught up in the response. The ban made complete sense. The decision that earned it didn't. Subscribe below before we keep going, because the next few entries stop being funny pretty quickly. We're talking about federal charges, a prison sentence, and one story at the end of this list where somebody died. Number 6. He sent a bomb threat because he had to watch the pets. When a bomb threat came in for the Carnival Sunrise, over 1,000 staterooms had to be searched. Security teams, law enforcement, the whole response. Because when a threat like that comes in for a ship at sea, you have no choice but to treat it as real. Every passenger on board had their trip disrupted. The investigators found out who sent it. His name was Joshua Lowe. His girlfriend's family had gone on the cruise. He had been left at home to look after the pets. He wasn't happy about it. That's it. That's the whole motive. He sent a bomb threat to a cruise ship full of passengers because he was annoyed about being stuck at home doing pet duty. He got 8 months in federal prison. A cruise line can't read minds. When a threat comes in, the full response gets deployed every single time, because the alternative is betting that every threat is a fake, and you can't make that bet with thousands of people on board. So more than 1,000 cabins got searched, hundreds of passengers got their day ruined, and every one of them had Joshua Lowe's feelings about the family vacation schedule to thank for it. 8 months in federal prison for a pet-sitting grievance. Let that one sink in. Number 5. He jumped overboard during a federal inspection. J. Gonzalez Diaz was on Royal Caribbean's Rhapsody of the Seas when it docked in the port of San Juan. CBP officers came on board to do an inspection during disembarkation, and at that point, according to the criminal complaint, he went over the side of the ship. People on jet skis brought him back to the shore. Now, the complaint does tie him to over $16,000 in casino losses from the voyage, but the reason he gave for going over the rail at that specific moment was that he didn't want to declare the cash that he was carrying to the CBP officers who had just walked on board. So here's what actually happened. The ship was docked, not out at sea, but in a port. Federal officers came on board for a routine check, and his response to that was to climb over the railing of a docked cruise ship and drop into the harbor in broad daylight with witnesses around. Not at a quieter moment, not at a later stop. Right then, mid-inspection, people on jet skis pulled him out and brought him back to the dock, where the same officers were still there waiting. The cash he'd been trying to hide was still the same problem. The $16,000 in casino losses was still on the record. The complaint covered it all, and now there was also the matter of the jump itself to explain. He hadn't solved a single thing. He had just added to the list. Number 4. He boarded an Alaska cruise using a fake identity. Federal prosecutors said Enrico Ronquillo boarded a Princess cruise in Alaska using counterfeit California identification documents, presenting himself as a U.S. citizen for the entire voyage, and was later indicted on charges of aggravated identity theft, false impersonation, and possession of false documents. If you're going to pick somewhere to try this, Alaska would be near the bottom of any sensible list. Stricter manifest checks, broader proximity, tighter coordination between agencies. Documentation on Alaskan cruises gets looked at more carefully than most places. But even putting Alaska aside, the cruise ship is a genuinely bad place to travel under a fake identity, and it comes down to how the whole experience actually works. And the thing about cruise ships specifically is that everything you do gets tied to the name you check in with. Casinos, restaurants, shops, port stops. By the end of the trip, there's a complete paper trail of everywhere you went and everything you did, all attached to whatever documents you showed on day one. You can't really blend in on a cruise ship. You're logged in from the moment you board. Ronquillo's apparent thinking was that being one face among thousands of passengers on a large ship was good cover. What it actually was several days of quietly building a well-documented federal case against himself under a fake name without knowing it. By the time investigators needed it, all the evidence was already there waiting for them. The Department of Justice put out a press release about the indictment. That is not how most people picture their cruise ending. Number 3. They packed carfentanil in their luggage for a Bermuda cruise. 4 American passengers were arrested in Bermuda after police found illegal drugs in their possession that included carfentanil. When the police spoke to the press about it, they said the seizure may have prevented a tragedy, and that's not a throwaway line. Carfentanil is roughly 100 times more potent than fentanyl. It's the kind of drug used to sedate large animals like elephants. It's not a recreational substance that ended up in someone's bag by accident. Its presence in cruise luggage is a serious public safety situation, not a bad judgment call. They got it on board, which is already a significant achievement given how embarkation screening works. Then the ship docked in Bermuda, which is a different country with its own police and its own laws, and those laws don't care where you started your trip. Some people treat a cruise like a legal gray zone between countries. Bermuda's police arrested 4 American tourists and told the media the seizure may have stopped a tragedy, and the ship carried on without them. Number 2. They tried to smuggle 95 kilos of cocaine through Sydney. When Sea Princess docked in Sydney, Australia, Border Force officers and detector dogs went through the passenger cabins and found 95 kilos of cocaine packed into suitcases belonging to 3 Canadian passengers. Not grams, 95 kilograms. They were charged. Maybe they figured that a ship carrying that much passenger luggage would make 95 kilos harder to find. It didn't. Australian Border Force goes through arriving cruise ships thoroughly, and detector dogs are not confused by large volumes of bags. They just have more to work through. The whole plan needed to hold together at the exact moment the ship docked in Sydney, but that's the exact moment it came apart. Someone put genuine planning into this. They figured out how to get it on board, kept it through the whole voyage, and apparently expected to walk off the gangway in Sydney like it was just another disembarkation. Officers went through the cabins, the dogs did what they're trained to do, and the bags came out. The entire plan rested on a cruise ship being a discreet way to move nearly 100 kilos of cocaine into Australia, which turned out to be very wrong. Number 1. One dropped cigarette. A fatal consequence. This one isn't funny, and I want to say that before we get into it. It's about 3 in the morning. The Star Princess is sailing through the Caribbean, somewhere between Grand Cayman and Jamaica, carrying 2,690 passengers and over 1,000 crew. Most people are asleep. Then a fire breaks out on a balcony on one of the upper decks, and within minutes, it's moving. Passengers wake up to smoke in the corridors, and people are running past their doors. Some of them made it out in nightgowns and robes because there was no time for anything else. The crew sounded the alarm. Passengers grabbed life jackets and moved to muster stations. And by the time the ship pulled into Montego Bay later in the morning, around 100 exterior cabins were blackened on the outside. Metal twisted from the heat. A stark, dark streak running across an otherwise white ship. One passenger, a 75-year-old man from Georgia named Richard Liffage, collapsed on deck and died. 2 more suffered serious smoke inhalation injuries. 9 others were treated for minor complications. The cruise was terminated. Everyone was rerouted to hotels. The investigation concluded the fire was probably started by a discarded cigarette end that landed on combustible material on a passenger balcony. Cruise ship balconies are open and run along the outside of the vessel right next to each other, and wind at sea pushes fire along that kind of surface rather than dispersing it. One moment of carelessness on one balcony spread across decks 11 and 12 and killed a man who had absolutely nothing to do with whoever dropped the cigarette. Everything else on this list is something you can see coming. The fishing video is a choice someone made and filmed. The bomb threat is something someone typed and sent. A cigarette being dropped is nothing. It takes no thought. It's over in a second. And on a ship carrying thousands of passengers in the middle of the night, it was enough to kill someone and destroy 100 cabins and end a vacation for nearly 4,000 people who had no idea it was coming. The no smoking rules and the balcony restrictions that passengers roll their eyes at during the safety briefing, those exist because of nights exactly like this one. Now, if any of these made you think twice about something you might have done on a cruise, drop a comment below and let me know which one got you. And if you want more of these, more bad decisions, or more things that went wrong at sea, the next video is already up. Go watch it now. Your voyage is just beginning.